My name is Jacqueline Kagume, and on behalf of the IEA, I'd like to very warmly welcome all of you to our conversation this morning. And for the sake of those who are joining the IEA for the first time, the Institute of Economic Affairs is a public policy think tank, and our mission is to advance informed policymaking through evidence generation, policy innovation, and informed dialogue. We work across 6 policy areas, starting with public finance management, constitution, law and the economy, economic regulation and competition policy, futures and foresight, international trade, and lastly, we have our program on popular economics. So today's webinar is for us a very important milestone because the IEA has been undertaking work on public debt for a long time. We will discuss the reasons why and why this is obviously very useful discussion and why a lot of Kenyans should be interested in this debate shortly. But just as a culmination of all the previous work that we've been doing and ongoing work that we're doing on debt, we've developed a debt tracker or the debt counter, which is basically a real-time tool which tracks or illustrates the quantum of Kenya's public debt, the split, and different components that we will show you when we meet in a few minutes. Actually, it's right before your screens, but as we show you how to navigate it. So we've designed this to enhance transparency and public knowledge of one of what we consider to be one of the most defining issues in Kenya's economic policy discourse, which is obviously the question of national debt. So the presentation today will be made by my colleague Noah Wamalwa. Noah is a program officer in our PFM program. But before we get to that, I'll provide a brief background and partly what I've already said in terms of why this webinar and why the question of public debt needs greater prominence in the public discourse space. So you are all aware, and the reason I think all of you are here is because debt has increasingly become one of the most debated questions in Kenya's economy, and rarely for good reasons. The discourse that we see has primarily been on questions around the opacity of debt contracting, questions around the accuracy of the declared quantum, and obviously and most significantly, the implications for development and provision of service delivery and public goods. So understanding the level and the structure and sustainability of Kenya's debt is crucial or essential to public accountability and the choices that citizens make about governance. And we think that this should squarely inform the discourse, the public discourse as we head into elections. So as you will see my colleague illustrating in a brief presentation, Kenya's debt has been growing steadily over the last decade and a half, but more sharply in the very recent past. So you can see from the tool that is beamed that we're way over the 11 trillion mark, and very soon Noah will tell us when we'll be hitting the 12 trillion mark. So this has obviously raised serious concerns about the balance that should be there between development financing and fiscal prudence. So in designing this tool, we thought that it would be useful for citizens, civil society, policymakers, the media, everyone generally, to be able to have quick access to accurate data on debt. And it should not take an economist to be able to interpret easily what Kenya's total debt is and what the drivers are, and also to look on the other at revenues on the other side. So we have a debt counter, but there are also elements of revenue on the other side that you will see. So that's the first thing in terms of the reason why we developed this tracker in the first place, or this counter in the first place. The other thing that I wanted to mention before we get into the substantive presentation is on the how. So the IE has developed this clock through very rigorous analysis of data that is publicly available, and principally data that is provided by the central bank, which is basically the repository of data on debt, the National Treasury, and also different components of data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, particularly with regards to population, because there are elements of the debt that whose analysis is calculated vis-a-vis the population. So we have also data from KNBS. So the tool basically updates in real time, and Noah will show you, and translates Kenya's total public debt into the running figure that you see that grows second by second. So you can look at it in different ways. If you want to get a picture of the growth or the trend line in the total debt per second or per minute or per hour or per day, you can be able to observe that from the tool. And then the reason why this obviously reflects the reality of the interest accumulation, and also the reality of continuous borrowing. So that is what the picture that is painted by this tool. So as Noah will show you, it displays the numbers, but it also demonstrates other analytical insights to help users to interpret what those numbers mean for future revenue obligations and also for broader sustainability. So that's the second thing, the mechanics. Then the third thing that I wanted to mention is on who should use this debt counter. I may have already mentioned this in passing, but our hope or our intention as we were developing this tool is that everyone, basically every Kenyan, and I mean all citizens seeking to understand the national conversation on debt, should be interested in this tool. So so be it CSOs, be it policymakers, MPs, before they authorize any further borrowing, and journalists who would like to explain the trends in debt is in an easier way, students, researchers, everyone alike. So that's why we have tried as much as possible to open this conversation up to as wide or as diverse an audience as possible. And thank you for being here. So that's on the usage. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is, and I know Noah will also gloss over the legal basis for debt contracting and debt in his presentation, but I also thought that I should emphasize in the opening that, and you're all aware that Kenya's constitution and the public finance management framework are both very explicit in terms of the definitions around public debt. So we have Article 201, which requires that borrowing by national government must be approved by Parliament, and that information on public debt should be reported transparently. So that's one. Article 201, again, on the principles of public finance management, demands accountability, openness, and also talks about intergenerational equity with regards to debt, basically stating that the debt that is incurred today must not compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So should have that in mind. Then we have the Public Finance Management Act and the regulations they are under. And so this will also be covered in the presentation. So that's the background in a nutshell. And as we go through this presentation, I also thought that I'd invite you to reflect on a few questions because of why we think that this discussion or the debate on public debt should get a little more prominence in Kenya. So at the back of your mind as you listen to the presentation that Noah will make, and as you also interrogate this tool. Maybe what we should be thinking about as citizens is a few things. One, what's Kenya's debt level reveals about our fiscal choices and priorities. Two, how data such as what we have should be used to shape and inform public discourse. And then for the different roles that we represent here, what we can do to promote responsible borrowing and debt management. And finally, what this means for fiscal accountability. So what does fiscal accountability mean for democracy and economic freedoms? So that's the background to our discussion today. I'd like to also acknowledge the support before I invite Noah. Very sincerely acknowledge the generous support of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK, which is FCDO. So the work that we have undertaken in developing this clock is supported by them as part of a broader initiative to advance issue-based politics, fiscal transparency and accountability in Kenya, and particularly as we approach the most important stages of the election cycle. So the aim here is basically to help us ensure that citizens' conversations are informed by evidence and that they are grounded in the economic realities and basically just to center public discourse on the questions that matter the most, thinking about Kenya's economy. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and invite Mr. Noah Wamala to make the presentation. So as I said, Noah is a program officer in the PFM program, and he will share with us a presentation and then do a demo of the debt clock. So Noah, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have developed this the Kenya National Debt Counter just to help in terms of access to data and to enable the CSOs and even the policymakers in tracking our debt level. And so my presentation will cover the following. I'll do a short introduction, and then within the introduction, we'll look at how the debt arises, why it matters, and some of the quick facts around Kenya's debt. Then we'll also look at some of the legal framework underpinning the Kenya's public debt. Then we'll do a short demo in terms of how this tool will be important to us and how we can then apply it in the dialogues, policy dialogues. And then we'll also briefly look at the next steps in terms of how we are gonna improve the dashboard and the counter so that it can be more useful to us. So in a nutshell, if you think of, let's say, Mama Mboga at the Ukulima market, if you ask, or if she comes across this term, public debt, what first comes to her mind? Of course, what comes to her mind first and foremost is that what she is spending is way above what she is earning. Yeah, and then in terms of, if she asks how she has come to this position, then she'll of course remember that she borrowed, let's say, a friend to spend on something, but did not pay on time. So that is borrowing on credit. So all this then over time accumulates into public debt, and then it gets more complicated in terms of, for example, the interest rates, then in terms of the change in the price of our shilling and all that. Yeah. Then now for the case of Kenya, then we look at debt in terms of two aspects: domestic, that is debt that is raised within the economy through treasury bills and treasury bonds. And then we also look at debt in terms of external borrowing. That is in terms of the Eurobonds on commercial markets and the bilaterals. That is the likes of government to government. Kenya, for example, borrowing from the government of the UK. And then, of course, we have the multilaterals, which include the likes of IMF, World Bank, and the African Development Bank. So Kenya, we have seen sustained budget deficits. We have also seen high interest rates. And we have also seen fluctuations in the exchange rate, and all this manner of factors have then built up to push our debt level to a very high level, which we think is not sustainable. Then, of course, us as common wananchi, we are concerned about this issue because it affects us in various ways. For example, if you see that the government is raising taxes on bread, it will mean that the extra shilling that you are giving to government, you'll have used it in other economic benefits. Why it's not for government raising that tax? So it directly affects us. And so us who are the taxpayers, we are then supposed, or we ought to put our leaders to account to ensure that the debt is at manageable level so that we're not affected indirectly. So as Jackie mentioned, our debt has accumulated to 11.9 trillion as per today's estimates. And according to CBK estimates as of April, it was around 11.5. In terms of GDP, as a share of GDP, on average is about 70%. And the interest on, so the interest is around 870 billion, the interest accumulated on domestic alone. So in terms of some of the legal underpinnings, of course, we have the Constitution, which says that debt servicing, the payment of the debt servicing, both in terms of principal amount and in terms of the interest accumulated on both domestic and external, should be treated as the first charge on account. First charge, it means that we ought to first consider payment of this before we consider a payment of any other votes. Before we consider paying for education, before we consider paying for health, we need to consider paying of this debt. Of course, we have the Public Finance Management Act. We also have the regulations under that. And then, these two acts establishes various regulations to manage the debt and various reports. For example, we have the medium-term debt management strategy. It's an annual report which is prepared by the National Treasury and submitted to Parliament for approval. So within that report, it sets out the threshold. It also sets out how Kenya is going to manage the debt. It also assesses the risks that are there in terms of debt, risks in terms of forex, that is fluctuation in the exchange rate, how it will affect especially the external debt, risk in terms of cost of servicing, like for example, the interest rates, how it's going to affect the domestic debt, and many other risks. So other documents, for example, the budget policy statement. So the budget policy statement is released 15th of February, 15th of February every year. So this document is a precursor to the budget preparation of the budget. So this document lays out policies and includes policies on management of debt and even pending bills. So, for instance, we have this concept called fiscal consolidation plan. fiscal consolidation plan is a medium-term plan by the government through the National Treasury to ensure that the debt level is not beyond minus 3%, it's not beyond 3% of GDP. So that is, it says out that we should not have a GDP more than 3%. Yeah, whether that's violated, that's another matter, but that's the document that also tries to assess and also provide policies around management of debt. Yeah. Then, of course, we have establishment of various debt management offices. For example, we have the Debt Management Office within the National Treasury. So this is an office dedicated to management of this debt. Yeah. So they do provide reports, they provide advisory and all that around debt. Yeah. Then now allow me to look at some of other facts that we have gathered from our estimation. So we have the total debt, as I've mentioned, around 11.9 trillion. Around 57% of this debt is domestic, which is 6.5, and externally, we owe creditors around 5.5 trillion. Yeah. So as you can see, the trends have risen sharply, especially from 2014. And remember, this is the time when Kenya, for the first time, procured Eurobond for the construction of SGR. And then, so you find at that time, external debt from around 2014 or 15, you find external debt surpassing domestic just because of the Eurobond. And then from there, we've been borrowing heavily. Now the sharp dent that you can see around 2024 February, that is the repayment of the bullet. That was the bullet payment that was made. Yeah. So it caused a drastic decline there, but then we can see the trend is assuming the underlying trend. So it's going back up. Then this is just to say that this amount of debt is huge, and we are likely to continue. It's likely to continue persisting. Yeah. Then, in terms of proportion, yeah, you can see that the lower version is domestic. Yes, and the upper version is sorry, the upper version is domestic. The lower part is external. So as you can see through regimes, we can see that under Kibaki there was a reduction in terms of external, which increased a bit within Uhuru regime, and then under Ruto regime is because of the payments, we have a slight reduction. So currently, I think domestic is 54% and external is 46%. Yeah. So in terms of as a share of GDP, so the total debt currently, as I said before, is 69%. So that is as at October 2025. So we can see that from around 2000, within Kibaki regime, that's where we had the lowest level as a share of GDP, around 35%. But then since it has increased sharply. Yeah. Then as a share of population, we can see just as the original trend show, as a share of population the debt is increasing rapidly. So currently we are talking about 222,000. So this 222,000, it means this is the amount that each Kenya owes. Each Kenya owes the external creditors. Yeah. Yeah. So when you compare with the GDP per capita, you find that it is very high. Now, allow me now to dive into how this debt arise. So, of course, every budget will estimate how much we are going to borrow within the domestic market through treasury bills and treasury bonds, and also how we are going to borrow externally, yeah, through euro bonds and all those bilateral agreements. But what I would like us to be keen about is about how the initial deficit is estimated or proposed, and then how it evolves down the line during the implementation. When you track this, you'll find there is a huge difference. So not only are we planning to borrow or to increase the debt in our first initial phase of our budgeting, but then over time we find that what we are surpassing what we planned. So for instance, this is an example that I've provided. So when you take the BROP, that is the Budget Review and Outlook Paper 2025, which was released about a week ago, you find that we've had 3 supplementary budgets. So the first one was in August. The second one was about in March, and the third one was actually in June, close to just around 3 weeks to the end of the financial year. That's around in June. And then now we have the actual versions of the budget. So, of course, the budget, we are looking at both the revenue side and the expenditure side. The very initial budget, which was approved, was actually in terms of revenue, it is 3.3. In terms of spending, it was around 4 trillion. So that works out to around 650 deficit. So this means we are supposed to increase, we plan to increase the debt by 650 billion. Now, supplementary one, because of the failure to adopt, failure to adopt the finance bill, so you find the spending, the spending reduced, but it did not reduce as much as revenue. Sorry. Spending reduced, and then revenue reduced also, but revenue reduced much compared to expenditure. Yes. So this means actually, and this is the point, that in the event we have supplementary budget, you find that there's persistence to retain expenditure, spending level. There's tendency to retain spending level, but then you find revenue is not matching up. So we have an increase in the deficit. So in this case, the deficit moved from 650 to 821 billion. Now, as we move further around March, now this year, March, you find, so supplementary one was August last year, 2024. So in March this year, we had supplementary two. So supplementary two, there was an increase in expenditure to around 4 trillion. Then revenue, there was slight increase just by 8 billion to 3.06. So that means our deficit increased from 821 in August last year to 940 in March this year. Now, we find that revenues did not actualize as they had planned. So we have 2.9 trillion against the expenditure of 4.0 trillion. So that works out to 1.06 trillion budget deficit. So in a nutshell, what we can see is that when we trace the budget deficits, there is a tendency to retain the spending even when the revenues are not being actualized as they had planned. Yeah. So of course, this means that the National Treasury will be issuing out treasury bills, treasury bonds to increase borrowing from domestic market, and then also try to borrow more, or sometimes to borrow to borrow externally to resettle some of the loans that are becoming due. Now, when we look at how now they are planning to spend in the coming financial year, you'll find things are not really improving. So this document, the budget review and outlook paper, you can see how they have projected in the medium term. Medium term is 3 years ahead. So you find that in 2026-27, so this is the budget window which this document should affect. So in this budget window, the expenditure is 4.6 trillion, while the revenue is 3.58 trillion, which works out to around 1.06 trillion as the budget deficit. Yeah. So this is an area that you and me should be, when we are submitting proposals, when we are engaging with the policy makers, this is an area that we need to really stress, and perhaps even propose that this supplementary budget, we should do away with the supplementary budget. The reason why I think there is we need to reduce on supplementary budgets is because supplementary budgets sometimes, in most cases actually, they are introduced within a very short window, such that the members of public do not have adequate time to interrogate this document, these documents. So you find that new data is introduced, which has not been subjected to public participation as required by the Constitution. So this is a clear way of violating the Constitution. Yeah. So this is so in terms of some of the policy recommendations out of this, we need to press National Treasury to improve on their forecasting, but also in terms of political economy, we need to ask or demand the National Assembly to really put pressure on the Treasury to ensure that subsequent supplementary budget do not increase the budget deficits. Now, there's also another problem. The National Assembly has an incentive to increase the spending. The National Assembly, when you look at CDF, for example, CDF is pegged on expenditure. CDF is 2.5% of total spending, the national spending. So that kitty, there is direct interest by an MP to have the kitty of CDF increased. So that's why you'll find that in most cases, there is a tendency for the National Assembly MPs to pass, to approve the budget, even sometimes increase the budget proposal, to increase the budget proposals received from the National Treasury. Yeah, so that is an area that we need to work hard to put these MPs on pressure to ensure that they don't have that incentive to increase. And one way is to ensure that CDF actually is not adopted as the court ruled. The court ruled that CDF is unconstitutional, and I believe that should be the case. So, just apart from these issues, yeah. So I had mentioned about improved forecasting. So improved forecasting will help us in terms of properly estimating revenues. So the reason why revenues are not being met partly is because of being overly optimistic. Overly optimistic means that you have set a very high target, which is not achievable. So it adversely affects the budget deficits across the year. So in this case, coming from 3.3 to 2.9 trillion. So having more accurate or realistic estimations will help us in reducing this budget deficit going forward. Yeah, so apart from the budget deficits, we have other risks that are channels in which our debt stock increases. So one way is this forex risk. So forex risk is when the shilling, for example, depreciates. Depreciate means is moving from, let's say, 129 currently to higher value, let's say 150. So it means it has lost value against the dollar. Yeah, so that's depreciation. So when it weakens, how it affects our debt stock is through the external debt channel. So for example, if, for example, today's shilling, which is exchanging at 129 against the dollar, depreciates by 5%. So it means it moves upward. So you'll find that our initial debt, which is around 5 trillion, will move upward because of that exchange value. Yeah. So it keeps on adding on debt. That's one way. Now, another way is the domestic debt increasing through various ways. And one way is increase in the interest rate. So currently, the interest rate at which the government is borrowing money from the domestic market is at 14.1%. 14.1% is very high. So if you want to know it's very high, you compare with the CBR rate, that is central bank rate, and also you compare with the treasury bills. So CBR rate is currently around 9.25%. So this is the rate that the central bank is telling banks they should not lend below. They should lend above. So it means if National Treasury is actually borrowing money from domestic market at 14.1%, it means it's way above the CBR rate by 5 percentage points. Now, when you compare with the Treasury bills is also a good benchmark because it provides a free rate free rate. So this is the money that you can put into, you can invest you can invest in government through treasury bills, and in most cases around 12%. So 14.1%, it means it's very high. Yeah. So this is questionable. So because it means that any investment that is made using this money borrowed at 14.1%, it should raise returns that are above 14.1% for it to be meaningful. Because you cannot borrow a debt at very high cost of 14.1% and invest in investment that whose returns are less than let's say 5% or 8%. So that's a huge loss. Yeah. And if you ask me, is the government investing in investment? Is the government investing in investment whose returns are above 14.1%? I don't think so. So we have very high opportunity costs when the government is borrowing at 14.1%. And this is something that we should also be questioning the National Treasury. Why it's borrowing at a very high interest rate. Yeah. So you can do various scenarios on how much this will lead to increment on our domestic debt. Yeah. And how we will have saved had we not borrowed at a very high rate. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I would like to take you through our dashboard. Yeah, allow me to share. Our counter is tracking in real time the total debt stock, which we've shown above, and both domestic and external, yeah, which are increasing in real time. So on the sidebar, that is on your left, we can see, you're able to select the type of debt, that is total, domestic, or external. And then you are able to view how it is incrementing periodically, so per second, in minute, hour, and that. So I can share let me share the link in the chat bot so that you are also able to interact with it. Yeah. So I would like to say that this dashboard has been optimized has been optimized on desktop screens. That is on your PC. So yes, on your PC and your desktop, not on small screens like mobile phones. So that is something that will work to ensure that is optimized even on the mobile phones. So so these are the details that you can see. Yes, you're able to see the increment per every period. So for instance, per day, I think just allow me let me restart. I think it's not very active. So when you click each period, you should be able to see, yes, it is now showing. So it's showing, just a minute, is 2.5 billion. So every day, the debt is increasing by 2.5. That's total debt. Now, another thing that you can also see, the, yeah, we will optimize for speed. So I wanted to say that you can also see the trends, how the trends from total debt, domestic, external, is incrementing over time. You can also see how those trends as a share of GDP, proportion-wise. You can also see in terms of population, so those trends as a share of population. Then another thing that we have also added is in terms of the spending. So you can also see how the expenditure is moving. Sorry, I think it's the issue of the internet. So internet affects also affects how it loads. Yeah, I think it will show up in a minute. Yeah, so we have the expenditure. Yeah, it's loading. Yeah. I also wanted to say that we have, before you get to the homepage, we have some information regarding how to use the dashboard. I think it's coming up. So it tells you, yeah, this is the information that I wanted to say. So these are just brief information regarding what you see. So for example, we say this counter tracks Kenya's public debt in real time, both domestic, external, blah, blah, blah. Then it provides the current stock, 11.982 trillion. Then, yeah, those short information. And then you are able to now move into this. Now, let me go to trends. So these are the trends you are able to see interactively across regimes, total, external, domestic, the breakdown. So an area of improvement which we think we should add is the annotations. So to explain the drastic change in the trend, for example, this period, this one was in January, and it is at this period that we paid what they call bullet payment for the euro bond, and it caused a sharp decline in the external debt. Yeah, so you're able even to see the variation, the amount initially, which was 6.19 trillion, and then below, which is 5.2 trillion. So that difference is partly what we paid. So what it's showing here is the net increase. Net increase means during the day, we have repayments of the debt, we have borrowings of the debt, both externally and internally. There are so many activities going on. We have valuation or fluctuations in the exchange rate. We have our the exchange rate moving from 129, sometimes going to 130 and all this. So we have interest rate also moving. So all these factors, considering all these factors, what is our debt stock? So this is what these trends are telling us. Same proportions as a share of GDP, then per capita. Yeah. Then another area of improvement that we will also add here is you'll be able to download the chart or even to share in the social media. Then over to expenditure counter. Same as the date status. This one also, we have a welcome page to provide you with just the info regarding what this counter is all about. So we're able to track the spending from 12 months ago. That is how it closed in the previous calendar year. Yes. From that point, then how it has, what is the closing level as of today? So 12 months ago. We do the same for revenue. We do the same for the deficits. Yeah. So this is what you'll see. Increment. So yeah. Then you are able now to dive into the dashboard. So you're able to see the counter. When you click the clock, you see the counter. When you click the trends, you're able to see the trends, deficit, yeah, deficit and all. Then, so you're able to see the increment here, and we've explained this is an increment from how it closed, how it's incrementing, the rate at which it's incrementing from how it closed a year ago to today. Yeah. Then we can now move to so we have provided another tab here, which we are calling additional drivers. So in additional drivers, so when you want to calculate the debt as a share of GDP, so you need these trends to do that. So maybe because of time, I will allow you to interact with this dashboard and you can gain more insights. And through your feedback, we'll be able to improve this dashboard even further. So let me just conclude. Allow me to share my screen. So briefly, in terms of Jackie, can confirm being able to see?
Yes, Noah.
Yeah. So briefly, in terms of some of the estimation of some of these trends, of course, we don't have data points at every point across. So we tried to interpolate, that is, estimate within the actual values, and also project, that is, estimate beyond. So this is just an illustration of population. So for population, we have estimations by, sorry, actual values and also estimations by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And then, so for example, from around 1999, that is the year of the census, to around 2009. So between these two values, those are the actual, so these two values, those are the actual values. So between these two values, those are interpolated values. So we just use statistical methods to interpolate in between. And then beyond, we used an estimation method called ARIMA. So this is autoregressive. Autoregressive means you're looking into the past. Integrated means you find how it's incrementing from one period to another period. Moving average is you average those increases, historical increases. So when you do this, you find what is called underlying trend over time. So this underlying trend helps us then to forecast the period beyond the actuals. So in this case, for example, estimated population currently, that is October 2025, is around 53.6. And this is what you're using to as underlying trends in estimating public debt as a share of population. That's debt per capita. Now, allow me to conclude by looking at the next steps. So what we request is for you to interact and also to provide us some of with some of your feedback to improve this dashboard much further. We also look forward to optimizing this dashboard on small screens, as for example, the mobile phones. Then we also plan to integrate the AI chatbot to help. For example, you may have specific question that you want to ask. So the AI engine will be able to process your question and also provide the answer from the information that we've provided it in the background. We also like to provide something, for example, customized reports for the journalists and even you as to gain quick facts so that you use in engagement with the policymakers like Parliament. Yeah. So with that, I would like to end my presentation there. Thank you very much for listening to me. Yeah. Back to you, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Noah. That was a very elaborate presentation for and good synthesis of Kenya's total public debt. So I think you've had from quick facts to you've observed what the trends were, trends in the debt accumulation across different regimes, the various risks posed by different factors that determine the growth of the debt, currency depreciation risks, the interest rates growth risks, and all the other factors that Noah has explained to us. You have observed or seen from what Noah mentioned that in terms of a per capita basis, all of us collectively, the 53 million of us, owe today at least 200,000 and 223,000 Kenya shillings of debt if we were all to pay. So to all our creditors, the combination of domestic and external, which is split as 121,000 that is owed per person to the domestic creditors, and 102,000 that is owed to external creditors, bringing it to 223. Then you have now at the end seen the dashboard or the debt counter that Noah has very ably demonstrated to you. I hope some of you here, because the link is already on the platform, have been able to interact with it. And at this point, we'd like to open up this discussion to plenary and invite your feedback. I apologize for any background noise. So questions, comments, we are very interested in hearing what would add value for you in using the tool. From our standpoint, it's pretty self-explanatory. It already provides you with those quick facts and figures at the moment you log in, but we'd also like to hear your feedback on what you think would be most useful, any additions. So I'd like to allow you to raise your hand. If anyone has a question, comment, if you'd like some clarification, Noah, maybe you can go back to sharing the screen on the dashboard itself in case we have questions on that. If anyone has any feedback, any question, please raise your hand. I will allow you to ask whatever question you might have. Questions, comments, your observations, or anything that you find concerning. Or if you have any question to Noah, especially on the mechanics of building the tool, this is your chance to ask. So please raise your hand. As I look for questions so there are no questions in the chat box. So it seems now that like there are no questions, which is hard to believe. So Faith, there are no certificates for attending IEA's webinars. We very much value your participation and contribution and hope that this has been useful. Other formal trainings, actual trainings maybe where it's relevant, but for webinars, no. And then Martin, thank you. Quite an informative presentation. Thanks. So Kay asks, is there a plan for layman's language? Noah, before you answer, I see a hand up by Terry. Terry, please unmute yourself and let's hear your comment or question.
Hi, thank you, Noah, for the presentation. I am sorry I joined late. I just wanted to know whether I'm seeing the dashboard, the Kenya National Debt Counter, whether the platform is already like we can access as a third users, or it's still under construction.
Noah, did you get the question?
Yes, Jack.
Okay, thanks, Terry. So Naomi says you love the visualization tool. Then Kay says they do not, this might need us further stepping down because it feels like economists having a chat where they all understand each other. I do not necessarily agree because first of all, if you, log in, the numbers that you see are first of all just plain numbers, what we call a plain reading or plain interpretation without any further insights. The same way Noah started by talking about, for instance, Mama Mboga owing on a very personal level. You just knowing that this is the amount you owe for what you have borrowed, and this is your expenditure on one side, and this is your income, and this is the debt. Logging into the clock gives you a very plain reading picture of Kenya's total public debt. The 11.9 trillion that you see is what, as a total, Kenya owes to all our creditors. Simply stated, without any economics background, we just need to know that first and foremost, before we go into the main drivers, the numbers that we are presenting, and that is observed in actual summarized insights that Noah showed, that it first of all gives you a snapshot of what you are looking at in very summarized language. And then once you close that chart, that box on the in summarized insights, then you look at the, no, if you go to the debt status, before looking at the charts on these trends, then it gives you, yes, so this is what we're talking about. You don't need any economics background to read that this Kenya's total debt is 11.9 trillion K. If you were to explain to anyone today after this meeting and they asked you what's Kenya's debt position, this is it, the total debt. This is what we owe to domestic creditors, 6.5 trillion. And this is what we owe for the external market, that's 5.4 trillion. That's it. We could have a different conversation on the drivers and understanding maybe how it's the things that are causing the fluctuations or the risks. But to be fair, the snapshots should be as basic as possible, but we would also encourage to hear your feedback on how exactly or what exactly you might need to be stepped down besides this overall picture. So that would be my initial response. And Noah can add. Noah, maybe just respond to Terry first, and then we'll go to the other question.
I think she asked whether it's available. Yeah, so it's available, it's running. And I think if I pasted a link in the chat bot. Yeah, so that link, we've said it's more optimized to work on PC, on computers. We will be working to ensure that it's even or enhanced in terms of viewing on the mobile phone, the small screens. So, but does not mean that you're not able to open on the mobile. You're able to open. It's only that we need to adjust the figures, the font of the figures to fit on the smaller screens. Yeah. So in a nutshell, it's working, and you are free to interact with it. Yeah. So maybe you can pick the link in the chatbot, yeah, for your future reference.
Thank you. Thanks, Noah. So Alan asks, can we get another field for debt servicing payments, external and especially domestic? Noah, is it possible?
Yes, that is very possible. We will be adding that one. So we have started to add the debt servicing. We have the numbers. The CBK, the Central Bank of Kenya, publishes information regarding the total servicing for both domestic and external. Yeah. So, and we use this information partly to provide these numbers that you can see at the top two boxes. That is the rate, the interest rate on domestic debt, and also the interest rate on external. And we've said interest rate on domestic actually was 14.1, now it is 14.2. So this is calculated as looking at the total debt servicing under, for example, domestic as a share of total debt stock for domestic. So when you divide that ratio, it gives you effective interest rate for domestic. You do the same for external. So this, they will provide the trends underlying all this. Yeah. Thanks for that question.
All right, thanks. Is there another hand up? Masasa, you had unmuted yourself at some point. Did you intend to speak?
No, oh, sorry. Sorry, Jackie, no. I'm
Oh.
listening in. Thanks.
Okay, all right. So then there's another question. Is there a plan for video animation of these huge numbers and formula? Then what strategies can help balance Kenya's reliance between domestic and external borrowing? So those are two separate questions. So actually there's a third question, Noah. So from the tool, the debt is updated every few seconds. Is this how fast our debt accumulates? Yes, actually the primary answer is yes, but Noah will also respond. Then Kay goes ahead and asks if there's a plan for video animation of the numbers and formula. And then Kariuki asks about the strategies in balancing that split. Maybe Noah, you can also mention what is expressed as the favorable split under the medium term debt management strategy, and what exactly should be done to allow that balance. Yeah, then we'll go back to the final round. Noah?
Yes, I get you. Sorry, which question?
So in terms of a basic one on is this how fast our debt accumulates, given that it's changing, or the tool shows that it's changing per second? So Lenovo is asking, is this how fast the debt accumulates? And then is there a plan for video animation of the numbers? So that's what Kay is asking.
Yes, let me respond the first one. So yes, this is how the debt is accumulating. This is the net increase in our debt. That is both in terms of how we are, the rate at which we are repaying, and how we are acquiring new debt. So on average, this is the net increase in our debt. Yeah. Then in terms of animation, yes, there's a second question regarding video animations. I'm not very sure. Maybe that one will liaise with communication team, and we'll get back to you. We'll communicate. The communication team will communicate regarding video animation. But I think that's. I think it should be. It's something that should be possible.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Noah. So this is as real time as to K. This is as real time as possible in terms of the way the number updates on the tool. But for occasional spoken narratives or video narratives, as Noah has explained, the IA colleagues, we can work on maybe occasionally presenting the numbers in video formats and sharing on our digital pages, just for those who would prefer, who would like that kind of packaging of information. So yes, and then someone stayed Inc. I don't know. I don't understand your name, sorry. We are grateful for the descriptive and diagnostics. How can we arrive at getting the way forward? What would be the prescriptive insights? I think Noah talked about, but he can repeat the major insights just very briefly and the way forward, but he had already talked about the proposed way forward is that based on the feedback we're obtaining here, we will go ahead and improve on the tool in terms of this is it's almost complete, but we are very open to adding things that would add value for the public. So whatever components we find necessary, we will go ahead and update on the tool. And yes, basically going forward, we also hope that you and as the public and everyone else will be engaging with the tool. What we should also have added is that we intend to add a questions segment on the tool where if, for instance, you are interested in or you have a question from any of the data or you're interested in gaining some additional insights, you can ask on the tool and you get a quick or immediate response. If in case there's something you have difficulty understanding. So that is a value addition that we intend to do. Then Olunga says, thank you for the insights. And I would love a tab on who we owe and payments in terms of due dates and when a payment is made. Yes, I think that would actually add a lot of value to this. We can see what is possible. Sometimes we have a limitation with the data, data accessibility ourselves. So for any data that is actually easily accessible from the CBK's website or that we can obtain easily, then we will be keen to add that. But yes, I think Noah can also respond and mention if that is possible. Then Alan says, I'd like to request an article on debt repurchasing / restructuring, like the Eurobond, and it lessens the overall debt burden. Okay, so before my colleagues actually respond further to this, we've also had in the past a number of papers authored by IEA on the question of debt and where we've proposed various solutions, including restructuring or a collaborative, default, which you can, interesting papers. If you visit IEA's website, you can read a paper that is, one was on, and then floods, and then the other one, the title, Michelle can remind me the title of the more recent one on the collaborative default.
Yes.
Yes, so but we can actually also paste the links here for you before the close of this webinar. And for whatever elements that are missing, yes, Alan, we can also look at whether we might need to do any additional papers to meet the request that you make here. So thanks for that. Noah?
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, keep doing it.
Yeah, so we will actually link for what we cannot be able to do for the purposes of, for the reasons of limitation of data, we'll be able to provide some links to these publications. So, and then, or sometimes what we can do is we can provide information of the latest publication. So for example, whom we owe, let's say external creditors or different countries, we are able to provide, because that information is there when you look at the debt management strategy, when you look at the quarterly economic budget and budget review reports from the National Treasury, we have that information in terms of whom we owe. Yeah. So what? But then this information is provided in static reports, PDFs. So that provides a limitation in terms of. So the advantage of this dashboard is that it's picking live information from central bank especially. So they have spreadsheets. So we link the dashboard to these spreadsheets. So it's able to pick these numbers directly from the website. But for these other reports that are static in PDFs, so that what we can do is just provide information at a particular time in the year. So those numbers we can provide, but they not be updating as these ones. So the reason why we cannot be updating those ones is because the lag in time is too huge, such that when you provide an estimate, it may be very far off from the true picture, and it can be misleading. So that way, it will be safe to provide a snapshot as at, for example, the close of 2024, 2025 June. Yeah. Then we will also provide links to this. So we've started actually providing the download buttons to some of the charts, for example. So you'll be able to not only download the chart and share, but you will also be able to, for example, on this page, as you can see, you are able to download the Excel version of, for example, GDP trends. You're also able to download population. Yeah, so these are the data that you're able to download. So we'll be increasing in these buttons, which can enable you to download some of this information and even share.
All right.
Jackie,
Thanks, Noah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm
Thanks, Noah.
Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
think you're okay. Thank you, Noah. So Alan, my colleagues have provided the information. So thanks, Mo. The other paper I was referring to was If You Keep Doing, and Michelle has provided the links here to some two related pieces of paper that do not, address some of what you request, but very specifically on restructuring, like the Eurobond case, for instance. A more specific paper can be done. We will think about that. But in the meantime, please read these publications and also visit the IEA's website for a lot of other helpful publications. So we are nearing the end. And Kay asks, do you have an IEA WhatsApp channel as an option for those of us who don't frequent major social media so we can keep up with webinars? And especially keep up with the evolution of the debt calculator tool. Yes, we do indeed have a dedicated IEA WhatsApp channel. So Kay would share your specific details with my colleague Michelle, and she will be able to add you, or we can provide further information on. You can actually just search the Institute of Economic Affairs, and yes. Oh, Olunga, actually. Thanks, Olunga. So yes, you can actually just follow the IEA WhatsApp channel, and you will be very well informed with up-to-date information on our activities. So thanks for that. Because of time, I see it's a minute to 12:30, and I do not see any other hand up. At this point, I'd like to invite Noah to just make some very brief closing remarks, just restate the next steps, and then I will conclude in a minute or so. Noah.
Yeah, so first and foremost is to thank each and every one of you for attending this webinar. And we hope that you've learned something, one or two. And we also hope that this tool will help you to be able to access some of these quick facts on debt and our fiscal affairs in terms of our spending, in terms of our revenue accumulation, and even debt servicing, so as to so that you may be able to engage with the policymakers in terms of public participation to influence policies to improve some of these indicators. So, as I said, we look forward to your feedback, and we will be working together with communication to see how this dashboard can be even improved further. Improved further in terms of speed, speed that is in terms of how it's able to you're able to log in, and also improve further in terms of connection to different devices. Yeah, also in terms of just navigation on the dashboard, the insights you can gain on the dashboard, different products that you can have on the dashboard. So that's something that you should be looking forward through our media sources. Yeah, you can get in touch with communication for further the activities that will be upcoming. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Noah. And I also like to, at this point also, as I bring this to a close, thank all of you for staying the duration of the session. Thank you for the feedback. The things that you propose, we will see to the best of our ability what we can be able to include, again, subject to data availability. And we request that you keep interacting with us. If you have any further feedback after interaction from this session, please share it with us, and we are happy to see where we can improve. Many thanks to my colleague Noah. He's worked very hard in ensuring that we have this tool up and running as it is, as well as all other IEA colleagues who've contributed in the analysis. But thanks, Noah, for the presentation and for the hard work on this. Thank you again to FCDO for supporting this work stream. So please get in touch with our communications team. For those of you who are not IEA members, the IEA is a membership institution. If you'd like to be part of the membership, kindly also get in touch with my colleague Michelle, and she will be able to assist you